Hi, everybody. My name is Daphna and I'm here online with my colleague.
Hi everyone, my name is Arlinda, and both me and Daphna work for the International Marketing Department of Utrecht University. And today we will be recording a small webinar about housing.
Yes.
Yes.
So, as you probably all know, we're in quite a strange situation these last few months. All of you as well. There's a crazy situation going on worldwide, and Arlinda and myself, along with all of our colleagues as well, have been working from home for about 6 weeks now, I think, Arlinda.
Yeah, 6 weeks already, 6 weeks and counting. So it's a bit of a different situation for us now, and we are recording this webinar both from our homes.
Yes.
So we have to see about the technicality, so please bear with us. We try to do it as best as possible for everyone.
Exactly. So if it's not going fully smoothly, we will do our best to rectify it right away. Anyway, thanks for watching. When you're watching this, we realize that these are very exciting times for all of you, and surely you also all have a lot of questions about what will happen, etc. We figured what we can do from our side is at least give you the best information as possible that we can, so that you are prepared for your start here in Utrecht University in September in terms of housing. Because the housing, after all, is one of the most important topics after getting accepted to the university. So this is what we are going to talk about today. I hope the slide moves smoothly to the next one. I think it does, right? Yes?
Yeah, it does. I see it too.
Perfect.
Yeah. So these are we divided it into 3 parts mainly. So we're first going to talk about the reserved accommodation program that we offer. Then we're going to talk about other ways to find student housing in Utrecht and its surroundings. And then we're going to talk a bit about budget. So that's the itinerary of this webinar.
Exactly. What we've also done, we've included 3 lovely students who have recorded short videos for us, and they will share their experiences as well. Because normally we do like to get them involved, and we know you guys have a lot of questions. Actually, this presentation is also largely based on a lot of questions that you have been sending us over the last few weeks. So hopefully it will answer all of your questions. Let's start with the reserved accommodation program, as Arlinda mentioned. So for this, it's very important to know a little bit about the Dutch university housing landscape, with the main point being that Dutch universities don't own their own housing, okay? This is not just Utrecht University, this is all the Dutch universities. However, what we do is we reserve a number of accommodation with housing providers, different housing providers in the city. So you will be renting and sort of closing a contract with these housing providers. Okay. So most international students actually start the search for a housing, for accommodation, while they're still in their home country. Right? So this is all of you. We are assuming right now. And you will probably be applying for what we call the reserved accommodation program. Okay, so this is the program where we sort of reserve a few housing. Yes, thanks, Arlinda.
Yeah, I already skipped to the next slide. So a few important points about the reserved accommodation program of Utrecht University, how it works in a nutshell. The rental periods are fixed for these accommodations. So that means that you get a contract for either a year or for 6 months if you're going on exchange. As we said, the offers are limited, so it's not enough for everyone. We wish it was, but unfortunately, this is not the case. So a booking is not a guarantee that you will get housing. It's based on a first come, first serve system. And the first thing that you have to realize is if you are actually eligible for applying for one of these programs, because they have different criteria. So some of them might be for exchange students, others might be only for master students. So it's good to check that before you start applying. They all have different application dates and different deadlines because, again, they're different housing facilitators that we work with, so they have different procedures. So all of that you can find on the website, see what applies to you and what are the dates. and then you can apply.
Yeah. Next slide, I think already.
Yes. We also often get a question from students if it's possible to book rooms with different housing providers, and then afterwards choose which one you prefer. That's a very frequently asked questions, and the answer is unfortunately no. You have to choose beforehand with which housing provider you are going to book a room. It's not possible to book for more housing providers than one. You need to choose one based on the eligibility and the costs or the location. You have to see which one fits best for you. If you apply for more than one, then the university is going to randomly assign you to one of the housing providers. So it's not possible to have more than one.
Yeah, so don't do accommodation that wasn't either.
Oh, sorry, Daphna, your microphone was a bit, I don't know what you said, but
yeah, just wanted to reiterate what you said. So just choose one, because if you end up applying for all four, you may get one appointed to you that you're not too happy with. So.
Yeah. All right. And it depends on the housing company. Some housing companies have private studios or where you have your facilities for yourself. So you have your own kitchen and your own bathroom, but there's also private rooms in which you share your facilities.
Exactly.
So here are a couple of pictures just to give you an idea what it would look like if you were to rent a house from the reserved accommodation program.
As you can see, these are examples, like Arlinda said. So you can see they're mostly like private rooms in a shared space, or they're like studios. That depends. You really have to go to that website that Arlinda just mentioned, uu.nl/housing, and really read up on everything, eligibility, etc., the possibilities. But you are able to see that when you book through this reserved accommodation program, that the rooms come furnished. So they include often the basic things like the curtains, let's see, flooring, obviously, a single person bed.
Yeah, a bed and a desk.
Wardrobe.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are always options to rent extra things. Those are then just like packages that you buy with a provider, where you can have extra kitchenware or beddings, sheets, etc. And I think what's also important to mention is that this offers accommodation for one single person. So you cannot, it's not for couples, it's not for children, it's not for families. And although this breaks Arlinda and my heart every time, it's also not for pets. So unfortunately,
you cannot
bring a pet. If you have, let's see, if you're wondering specifically about what items you are allowed or not allowed to bring, you can also always look at the website, check the website of the housing provider specifically, email them and ask for more information. Yeah. I think next slide.
Yeah, so this is a little map of Utrecht and its surroundings, because of course we also often get the question, so where are these accommodations and where exactly am I going to live? And one thing that is good to realize about this is that you may already know, but the Netherlands is a super tiny country. We're a very densely packed small country in Europe. And that means that also a lot of people do not live in Utrecht city, but they live in surrounding villages. And this is also the case for some of the housing that we offer through the reserved accommodation program. They are not in Utrecht, the city. They might be in surrounding towns. So here on the map, you can see all the purple area, that is Utrecht city center, or Utrecht the city. And then you can see the surrounding parts, such as De Beeld or Zeist or Bunnik. They also have a student housing, and it's very common to live there as a student as well.
The idea is also, like Arlinda said, we are a small country, and we really advise you in the beginning, when you're searching for a room, don't be too picky. It maybe looks like on the map, if you're going to Zeist, it's going to be very long. But if you're studying at Utrecht Science Park, it's not such a long cycle away in that sense. So it's really yeah, don't be too picky, spread your chances. And then I think what's also nice to mention is that there's a new tram that goes from Utrecht City Center, the station, right to the Science Park, where actually both Arlinda and myself work, and where a lot of students obviously study who do more of natural sciences, social sciences.
Yeah, so it depends on what kind of program you're going to study. If you have your classes in the city center or in the science park, and
Yeah.
the city center and the science park are very well connected through this new tram line that we have. So tram from the central station to the science park. Your audio failed a bit, Daphna. So I'm repeating a bit what you said. So we have a tram from Utrecht Central Station to the science park. And again, if you live in Zeist or De Beeld or Bunnik, you're actually closer to the science park than from some areas in Utrecht City.
Yeah.
So it all depends on your perspective in that.
Yeah.
Additional facilities. So this is just an example of some other additional facilities that a student housing through the reserved housing program might have. It really depends on the buildings. So you would have to see the website to see what kind of specific facilities this might include for your housing of choice. So some housing buildings might have a laundry room downstairs, or they have a coffee bar, or there might be a bicycle shed parking, or a shared roof terrace, things like that. So you see some examples here on the slide.
Okay, moving on.
Yeah.
Can you hear me properly? Yeah, this is the. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Awesome. Yeah, this is an important one, and also one that we understand that maybe on top of mind with a lot of you guys. Of course, currently we cannot predict how things are going to be. We can't really say, what travel restrictions will still be in place in a few months from now. Normally the cancellation, sort of requirements, or how should I say, the restrictions are pretty quick, pretty heavy. But Utrecht University was managed, to negotiate a bit more of a lenient cancellation policy with the housing providers, as you can see here as well. So this basically means if you cancel 4 weeks prior to the start of first day of rent, you will be able to get most of your costs back. There are a few costs that you cannot get back. I'm quickly peeking at my sheet here. Cancellation fee, and often also a non-refundable booking fee. But we're very happy to say that our colleagues from the housing office were able to negotiate this for you. Of course, we have to just see what's going to happen over the next few months, and see what happens sort of at the end of that term when you are about to start.
The thing that you may not heard because Daphna's microphone was failing again. I'm sorry. The things that are non-refundable if you cancel 4 weeks prior to the start of your rent, the fee that you had, the administration fee, that is not refundable, and there will be cancellation fee, but you do not have to pay the actual rent of the period that you were renting the house for. So that is something that is an extra policy because of this whole situation that we are in right now. And we don't know what's going to happen yet. We wish we were, but we just have no idea. So we will keep you updated about everything on the website and via email if something changes.
Also,
that's the most important, I think.
Yeah, it's also important to mention, if my audio works right now, which I hope it does, so sorry about that, that obviously the housing providers are sticking with the guidelines that are in place by the Dutch government. So as soon as that's going to be updated, they will also update all of that. So just so you know.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Other ways to find student housing, because we've talked about one method, which is the reserved accommodation program, right? Unlike the reserved accommodation program, a lot of students often have to find housing on the private market. And this works a little bit different, right, Arlinda?
Yes.
So one of the main things how this is different is that on the private market, you're often renting a room with other tenants in a house, and then these tenants will decide what new tenant will come live in their house. And this is done through a process called hospiteren, which is a group viewing. We will come to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But with the right preparation and the tips that Utrecht University Housing Office gives you, it can increase your chances. Although, if you look at the website, uu.nl/housing, there are a lot of tips, and we always warn students, in advance about, everything, all the topics we're talking about. We still often see that students have expectations, which is normal. Of course, you all do, and then sometimes the reality can be a little bit difficult, right? So this is Elena, one of our wonderful students, and we've asked her to talk to you a little bit about the expectations she had prior to coming to Utrecht versus the reality of the situation. So Arlinda's going to put the video on, and we hope it's going to be loud and clear.
Hi guys, my name is Elena, I'm from Russia, and I'm a research master student of linguistics at Utrecht University. And today I'm going to talk to you about expectations versus reality in the Utrecht housing market. So I will try to talk about 3 things that I think are still relevant even in these unusual times. And the first thing is the help from the university. So I expected that when I was desperate, the university would give me real options such as rooms, apartments, or contacts of people who can help me. But the thing is that the university only can provide you with some tips about renting rooms and not with some real options. So do not count on that. The second thing is housing agencies. I really tried to pop up at some housing agencies' offices and explain my situation, but it didn't help because the housing agencies in the Netherlands usually give rooms and apartments to, usually it's apartments and they give them to people with stable income, so no students, no people with unstable income, and no foreigners. So it was a no-go. And the third thing is SSH long stay, which you probably have heard about by now. So the longer you are in this system, the closer you are to the top 10 people that are invited for viewing of a room. And I thought that if I register in May, by September I would be able to be somewhere next to the top 10. This is not the case. You probably need 2 or 3 years to get anywhere close to the top. So I would not suggest counting on getting a room from SSH long stay if you register now. That was it. I hope it can be helpful, and I wish you good luck in finding a room in Utrecht.
Yeah, so we wanted to ask or talk a little bit about what Elena said, because as you can clearly hear, she had a set of expectations, and these weren't entirely met in the real situation. It is true that as a university, we are quite limited in how we can actually help. Of course, as mentioned before, sadly, we don't own a large number of buildings, and we don't have rooms to just hand out. That's why this website that you see right now on the slide is really your Bible. You should go there, uu.nl/housing, and all the housing tips and tricks and do's and the don'ts are on there. For the situations where we can help, we give you all the tips and the tricks and the tools that you need in order to see what's out there, right? The reality is, unfortunately, that the housing market in Utrecht, the private market goes on a more informal basis, where we just said students can choose the new tenants. I'm looking at Arlinda. Is my sound still okay?
Yeah, it's a bit distorted, but I can understand you, so hopefully it's correct on the recording as well.
Okay.
What was I gonna say?
No, I just wanted to see.
Yeah. No, the reality is just that, of course, we wish that we could all guarantee housing for everyone that comes here, but unfortunately, the housing market is very tight in Utrecht and in the Netherlands in general. This is a problem throughout all university cities in the Netherlands. And the reality is just that it's, in the end, your own responsibility to find housing. And the university can offer help, and we do offer a lot of help, but we are not in a position to give everyone that cannot find housing a room just because we can. So that is something good to realize, and that also might be different from other countries that you might go on exchange or do a university program.
Also, two more things as to what Elena just said. The agencies and the platforms. It is true that in the Netherlands, a lot of agencies offer accommodation to people who are already working and therefore who have a steady income that they can prove. However, there are also some agencies and platforms on this website that we do know rent out to international as well as Dutch students. So you also have to do your research a little bit and really do look into that and see which platforms and agencies are able to help.
Yeah. A lot of the times, these agencies, they also offer, for example, students are trying to find apartments that they can share with 3 other friends, for example. And that is something that is not really common, and it's also quite difficult because those bigger apartments usually have a higher rent in total. So for those kind of apartments, the agencies really say, well, you do need to have some income provided, and we don't want to rent it out to students. But when it comes to rooms, it's easier. And there are also more agencies that actually deal with student rooms rather than apartments.
Yeah. The final thing that Elena also talked about, there was a long stay, right? So she said she was starting to search in May, and she registered herself with SSH long stay, hoping to have a room by September. SSA's long stay is really more for when you intend to stay longer. So if you are now starting to exactly the SSH regular accommodation. Yeah, great, wonderful. Just to tell you the difference, is the SSH, that's the company, right? So there's a reserved accommodation that we started telling you guys about. That's where you have to look on our website. You have to see when it opens. You book 1 room, not 4, 1. But SSA is the company. You can also register with them privately, and there you have to basically build up waiting time. So this is not to do now for a start in September. This is, for example, to do now when you know that you're going to stay maybe 3 years in the Netherlands. That way you have a bit more registration time, and then hopefully your chances of getting a room are higher.
Yeah, and those rooms are unfurnished as well. So
yes.
Yeah.
Unfurnished, and they work with the principle of the home visit, the house viewings, right?
Yeah.
The hospiteren that we will talk about. Just again to explain. So with the SSH reserve program that goes sort of through the university where you book it, there is no home visitation. Okay, this is only when you do it on the private market or through long stay. Yeah, if we go back to that slide before where you saw all the do's and don'ts, I want to stress this is really where it starts. Go to the website, read on it, make sure you know what the expectations are, and don't let it discourage you. There are a lot of tips there. I think we go to the next slide right now.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, this is just an example of what houses on the private market look like. As Arlinda said before, they're usually not furnished because students come in, they leave, they take their own stuff with them, which is great because you can sort of redecorate everything according to your own taste, of course.
Yeah, and usually they have shared facilities, so you share a kitchen or a bathroom, and then you have your own private room where you can just put in your desk and a bed, and maybe if your room is a bit bigger, you can have your own couch in there and things like that. I think if you live in a Dutch student house, it depends a bit on the roommates, but it can be very like social and very socially active. So some people might cook together every night, or they have one set date in the week that they all eat together, and they call it like that huisavond, the the home evening where everyone is home and they eat and do nice things together. So it's a nice social environment as well.
Yeah. Overall, good thing is that increased number of private housing companies also do rent out furnished rooms, but this is a way more expensive option. So yeah, you won't find it a lot. Overall, like really affordable options tend to go quite quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, where do students live?
Yeah. So the answer is all over the place, basically. Yeah. So this is a bit of a bigger map than the one we had before, and you see that. So the name of our city where the university is in is Utrecht, but the province that Utrecht is in is also called Utrecht. It's not confusing at all. But the whole province is the same size as London city centre, for example. Yeah. Just to give you a bit of an idea of how tiny our country really is. And that means that students also live all over because there's pretty good public transport in the Netherlands. And also a lot of things are within cycling distance. So as you can see, there's a lot of places in Utrecht province where also our students live. And then you could choose yourself if you go cycling, which is the cheapest option, of course, or if you go with a bus or with a train to the university.
Yeah. We also recommend you to not just limit yourself to just one or two areas in the city, but really spread your chances. We hear from a lot of international students that the first house where they live is not going to be the only house where they live. A lot of students tend to move around in their Dutch university career, so to say. So keep an open mind, spread your chances. Don't focus on that red big dot in the city center. Yeah, just spread your chances, definitely.
Yeah, and also look into temporary accommodation as well when you first come here. If you can find a room for about 3 or 4 months, like for the first 3 or 4 months that you're here, awesome, do it. And then once you're actually in the city and you get your connections, you can look into more permanent options. And as Daphna also said, it's really common for Dutch students to move around. I think when I was a student, I moved house 4 times, and that's really not an exception.
Yeah. I think questions that we also get from students is, are there any like no-go areas of Utrecht? Utrecht generally is a very safe city. Of course, there can be areas where people can say, don't live there. Please also check this on the website, uu.nl/housing. Yeah. So
yeah, but in a sense of actual no-go areas, there's not an area where I would say, no, you definitely cannot live there. Don't do it. There's nothing like that. And I personally feel very comfortable cycling to my house after I went to the city at 2 a.m. or something. That's really fine.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
This
so
we have already covered, I think.
Yeah, we did, because we were talking about that after
So important is to keep in mind that SSH is just a housing company, and they have both a reserved accommodation program with the university, and they offer regular accommodation, which you can sign up yourself privately.
Yeah. Yeah, what's important is the next video, filmed by our wonderful student Grace from Ireland, and she's going to basically explain to you the process of what we call hospiteren, or house viewings. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Grace, an Irish student who's studying her Masters in Utrecht University, and I'm studying art science. Today I'm going to be talking to you about hospiterens, which are housing interviews that you do in the Netherlands. A hospiteren is a really common process for room selection, and the way that you can get them is by applying to rooms advertised on Facebook pages like Cameron Utrecht. And you either email a little profile about yourself, or you PM them and tell them about your hobbies and your interests. So they get a lot of applications for these rooms, normally upwards of 100 for one room. So be aware of the fact that if you even get invited to the hospiteren, you're doing really well. So don't let your nerves get the better of you. When you show up to the hospiteren, normally you'll enter a sitting room, all of the housemates will be there, and you could be interviewing with other applicants as well. So you need to be able to be respectful when they're speaking, but also not hang back too much, let your personality come out. And one of the tips that I would give is bringing a small token for the housemates. So I bring like an Irish snack with me or something to make them remember me when I'm gone, and it seems to really help. Also, in the wake of coronavirus, there have been some hospiterians being offered via Skype, which is great because, you know, we all need to social distance at this time. But just be wary of scammers, because it's one way that they might get you to sign a contract without seeing the room, which is not a good idea. And the last thing I would say is that when you're applying from abroad, it's really hard to get hospiterians because they know that you're not going to be able to attend in person. So just be aware of the fact that being in the Netherlands really improves your chances. And I wish you guys the best of luck. Hopefully you will get a room.
Yes, that was a great explanation by Grace about what hospiteren is really all about. And also, I love how she said, bring a little token and leave your anxiety or your nerves at the door. You just got to be yourself, come in there, be open-minded, etc. The process is just competitive. It's competitive because there's a lot of students in general, right? And everyone wants to. So don't let it disturb you. Really watch this video of Grace a few times over and put those tips in your mind so that you know how to go about it. The last thing that Grace ended with was on scams, right? And I think we have another slide on that because unfortunately the reality is there are a lot of good people in this world and there are always a few not too good people. So when it comes to the housing situation, unfortunately, there are people who will try to take advantage of the high demand of housing by posing as, you know, fake people that actually have to offer something. On our website, uu.nl/housing, you should know it by heart by now. There's also a bunch of tips that we give you on how to avoid scam. The most obvious one is never, ever, ever transfer any amount of money in advance when it comes to private renting. If people will say, "Oh, I'm abroad right now, so I cannot show you the house, but if you transfer me the rent, you will be under a doormat." That's just too good to be true. So those things, yeah, it doesn't happen.
And if you want to have some advice, for example, if you found a room somewhere and you're not sure if it's legit or you have questions about the contract or something like that, you can always contact our housing office. We have support offices there that have a lot of experience with housing contracts and know the market and know how it works. So if you have any doubts or questions, you can always contact us.
Yeah, please do that. Don't think that you're bothering us. Rather contact us and make a mistake and be scammed.
Oh, sorry, that last part I didn't hear you, Daphna.
I said rather contact us sometimes with a question about if it's legit and make a mistake and be scammed. No?
No, sorry.
Oh, but can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can, but it was just a bit strange.
I don't know. I said just rather contact us whenever you need to. So let's move on to the next video.
Yeah. Okay, so the last part that we're going to talk about is budget. So what does it cost to actually live in the Netherlands, in Utrecht, in a student house? So to start off this topic, we have a third video, which is from one of our students, Chris. And he's going to talk to you about what he pays for his room and what the budget is that you should think about when coming here.
Hi, my name is Chris. I'm from Germany and I study public international law for my master's at Utrecht University. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about the budget that you have to keep in mind when looking for housing in the city or its surrounding areas. I, for myself, live in a shared international student housing a little bit outside of Utrecht in Zeist, so I cycle 30 minutes to class most of the time. And I have my own room there with everything I need, so it was furnished already. But I share kitchen, living spaces, bathrooms with my roommates, and I pay 460 euros a month compared to what my friends pay in Utrecht or also in other cities. I'd say that is pretty fair and pretty average. housing in the Netherlands is probably more expensive than what you are used to. So you should be prepared to pay, I'd say, 400 to 500 euros for a room of my kind. So a single room with shared facilities. If you're looking for something bigger or something more independent, like a studio apartment, you should be willing to pay obviously more money, probably up to 900 euros. But of course, prices vary and you might be able to find a very good deal. So start early, look hard, and I wish you the best of luck.
Yes. Thanks for that, Chris. Some great tips.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Chris talked about this because we have been hearing back from students that the rent for student accommodation is way higher than what they used to. So, like Chris just said, these are, as you can see on the slide, what we really advise in terms of amounts to consider. So, depends on where you live, right? Chris lives in Zeist. If you live in the city center, it will be way higher. Also, make sure that you calculate extra costs like utilities, fees, down payments, municipal charges, things like that, and also travel costs, right? So costs like going away for weekends or travel costs within the Netherlands, public transportation costs, things like that. There are actually discount cards for students. I think once you come to UU, during the orientation days, you will find out a little bit about that, but definitely keep this in mind in costs.
Yeah, and you may know that there is a possibility to get a Dutch travel product, like to travel within the Netherlands with public transport for free. That is unfortunately only the case for Dutch students with a Dutch nationality. So this does not go for international students, unfortunately. So there are some discount subscriptions that you could take with the train company or with a bus company, and that is something that you can already find out before you come here and include that in the budget that you have. Of course, obviously, cycling is the most cheap option here.
And healthiest option.
Yeah, exactly. Public transport in the Netherlands is quite expensive, I gotta say, especially the trains. So do keep that into consideration also when it comes to looking for houses. In the Netherlands. Yeah.
Okay.
We both clicked.
Yeah, we wanted to tell you a little bit about rent allowance because it is also something we get quite some questions of. This is basically an allowance that's regulated by the Dutch government to make renting a little bit more affordable. We really want to stress this is a Dutch government thing, not a Utrecht University thing. So if you have questions about this, you really need to look on the website at the Dutch government for rent allowance. There's individual requirements such as age and income, as well as specific requirements about the actual room that you're living in. And new rooms with shared facilities are usually not available for this. So some studios of the reserved accommodation program that we talked about at the very beginning can be eligible to meet this, to get this, if you meet certain individual requirements. So you would have to check this online as well.
Yeah. And then the thing is that if you want to apply for this rent allowance, that is a procedure that you would have to do yourself with the Dutch tax office. So that is not something that Utrecht University can arrange for us. That is really a personal, private process that you have to follow with the Dutch government.
Yeah.
Okay, that's about rent allowance. So we have reached the end of our online presentation. The main message that we want to give to you is start now. With looking into the options, with seeing what kind of budget you have, where could you possibly live, what are the distances, how am I going to get there? There's a lot of things that can be researched online already now. Please keep an eye on the website when it comes to the opening of the applications for the reserved accommodation programs. So all the deadlines and the dates are already on the website, so you can see when this opens. If these applications opens, keep in mind that it's going to be crazy busy. So be there on time. We always compare it to buying concert tickets. Like the website could overload, the server could overload, you could have multiple browsers open to increase your chances. Think of those kind of things that's going to happen because it's just very busy and there is a high demand. So do not underestimate that. The website uu.nl/housing, by now, I don't think you can forget it. We've mentioned it a couple of times. There is a lot of information to be found online on the website. And if it's not there, you can always contact us via WhatsApp or email.
Yeah.
That was it from our side. Thank you for watching. And good
Sorry
luck.
about the technicalities.
Yeah. Sorry. This is, of course, an interesting thing that we have to deal with from our homes. So it might not be as perfect as we would have wanted it to be, but we hope it was still useful.
Exactly.
Okay.
We wish you lots of luck also these coming months with prepping yourself, most of all also with staying safe out there, you and your loved ones. And please know how to find us on uu.nl/housing or reach out when you have other questions.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, guys.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.